I moved into the apartment in late January, right after a winter storm that shut the city down for 2 days straight. It was an older building on the edge of town, the kind that had thick concrete walls and radiators instead of modern heating systems. Nothing fancy, but it was affordable, and at the time that mattered more than anything else. The building manager, a tired-looking man named Harold, walked me through the unit himself. As he handed me the keys, he casually mentioned something that stuck with me. "The apartment above you is empty," he said. "Has been for about 6 months now." I remember asking why. He shrugged and said the previous tenant left suddenly in the middle of winter and never came back. No details, no explanation, just gone. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Empty apartments aren't unusual in winter. For the first week, everything felt normal. The radiator worked fine, the pipes made the usual clicking noises at night, the hallways stayed quiet, especially after dark. Most tenants worked early morning shifts, so the building went silent by 10. That changed during the second week. It started with water. I was lying in bed around 2:30 in the morning when I heard a faint dripping sound. At first, I thought it was coming from outside, melting snow maybe. Then I realized it was inside my apartment. I got up and followed the sound to the bathroom. Water was dripping from the ceiling, directly above the shower. Not pouring, not flooding, just a steady, warm drip. I touched it with my fingers. It wasn't cold, it was warm water. That did make sense. No one lived above me, and even if someone did, hot water shouldn't be running at that hour. I placed a bucket underneath and went back to bed, planning to report it in the morning. The dripping stopped around 4. The next day, I called Harold. He sounded annoyed, like I was inconveniencing him. "The unit above you is shut off," he said. "No water, no heat, no electricity." I told him the water had been warm. He paused for a moment, then said it was probably leftover pressure in the pipes. I didn't know enough about plumbing to argue. That night, it happened again. Same time, same spot. Warm water dripping through the ceiling. But this time, there was something else. A sound. It was faint at first, almost easy to ignore. A dragging noise, like something heavy being pulled slowly across the floor above me. I stood in the middle of my living room listening. The sound wasn't random. It moved from one side of the apartment to the other. Then it stopped. I waited for footsteps. None came. I waited for voices. Nothing. Just silence. The dripping continued for another hour, then stopped completely. The next morning, there was no water damage, no stain, no swelling in the ceiling, nothing to suggest it had happened at all. I started checking the hallway more often after that. The door to the apartment above mine was always closed. Dust gathered at the base. No footprints, no mail, no lights under the door. Still, every few nights, I heard something. Sometimes it sounded like furniture being shifted. Other times like someone pacing slowly back and forth. Always late at night, always when the building was quiet. I tried to ignore it until the heating problem started. One night, the radiator shut off completely. The temperature outside had dropped below 0. I checked the valve, nothing. I called Harold again. He told me the system was struggling and asked me to wait it out. That night, while lying under 3 blankets, I noticed something strange. Despite my heat being off, the ceiling above me felt warm. Not slightly warm, noticeably warm, like heat was running directly above my apartment. The next morning, I checked my utility app. My water usage had spiked overnight. I hadn't used any extra water. According to the report, the usage was coming from above. I went straight to Harold's office. I showed him the data. He frowned and said that wasn't possible. I asked him to open the apartment above mine. He refused. He said company policy required advance notice. That night was the worst one yet. I woke up around 3:30 to the sound of water pouring. Not dripping, pouring. I ran to the bathroom and saw water streaming down the walls. At the same time, the dragging sound started again, louder this time, slower, heavier. It sounded like something massive being moved across the floor directly above my bedroom. Then I heard a thud, followed by another. Then something that sounded like a door being shut. The water stopped instantly. I grabbed my phone and recorded audio for nearly 10 minutes. The sounds didn't return. The next morning, I played the recording for Harold. He listened without expression. Then he said something I didn't expect. "He shouldn't be accessible," he said quietly. I asked what he meant. He told me the locks had been changed months ago. No one had keys, not even management. That afternoon, maintenance finally agreed to inspect the unit above me. I waited in the hallway while they unlocked the door. When it opened, warm air poured out. The apartment wasn't empty. It wasn't furnished either. The floors were bare, but there were signs someone had been there recently. Wet footprints near the bathroom, steam condensation on the mirror. The bathtub was damp, and the radiator was running at full heat. The maintenance worker shut it off immediately. No one said anything. When I asked where the water was coming from, they didn't answer. That night, the building was silent. No dripping, no dragging, no warmth above me. The next morning, a notice was posted in the hallway. Unit closed for repairs. A week later, I saw workers sealing the door permanently. Metal plates over the frame. No explanation. I moved out 2 weeks after that. Before leaving, I checked my final utility report. For the last 6 months before I moved in, water usage had been logged from the supposedly empty apartment. Every winter night, between 3 and 4 a.m., exactly when the heat in the building worked the hardest. I never found out who had been using that apartment, but I know one thing. Someone needed the heat more than anyone else in that building, and they weren't supposed to be there. I didn't build a snowman, but one appeared anyway. It showed up the morning after the first heavy snowfall of January. I remember noticing it because it was positioned in a strange place, right at the edge of my backyard, directly in line with my bedroom window. At first, I assumed it was just a neighborhood kid messing around. We lived in a quiet suburban area in the Midwest, the kind of place where people didn't usually lock their doors during the day. Snowmen weren't unusual. Kids built them all the time. Still, something about it felt off. It wasn't near the sidewalk. It wasn't close to any other houses. It was standing alone, about 20 feet from my window, angled so its face was pointed straight at my room. I didn't think much of it that first morning. I showered, got dressed, and went to work like normal. When I came home that evening, the snowman was gone. I assumed it had collapsed or someone knocked it over. That night, it snowed again. When I woke up, it was standing there once more. Only this time, it was closer. Not by much, maybe 2 or 3 feet, but it was definitely closer. I stood at my window for a long time watching it. The snowman didn't have a face yet. No eyes, no mouth, nothing. Just a smooth, blank head, tilted slightly upward as if it had been positioned carefully. Again, no footprints. Again, only that compressed patch of snow at its base. That morning, I felt uneasy enough to call in late to work. I wanted to watch the yard as it got light out. I kept thinking maybe I'd see someone across the street or notice a trail I'd missed. Nothing. Eventually, I went outside and destroyed it again, this time completely. I scattered the snow, flattened everything, made sure there was no shape left to rebuild. Before going inside, I took pictures of the yard with my phone. I wanted proof of how it looked when I left. That night, the snowfall was heavier than before. Thick, quiet, the kind that muffles every sound. I barely slept. When morning came, I didn't go straight to the window. I already knew what I was going to see. The snowman was back. Closer again. Now it stood less than 10 feet from my window. And this time, it had a face. 2 small stones pressed into the snow where eyes should be. A shallow slit carved for a mouth. No smile, no expression. Just a face. I checked my phone against the photos I'd taken the night before. The yard in the pictures was empty, undisturbed. Someone had built it overnight. Someone had stood there in the snow long enough to pack the ground beneath them solid. And somehow, they had left without leaving tracks. I called my neighbor across the fence and asked if he'd seen anything unusual during the night. He said no, he slept through it. He joked that maybe someone was pulling a prank. When I asked if he'd noticed footprints in the morning, he went quiet for a second. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. "There weren't any," he said. I noticed that too. That afternoon, I called the non-emergency police line. I explained the situation as calmly as I could. A patrol car came by, took notes, and told me it was probably a prank. Kids, teenagers, someone with too much time. They suggested installing a camera. I ordered one that same day and mounted it facing the yard before nightfall. That night, I left the snowman standing. I wanted to see who was doing this. The snowfall started around midnight. I woke up twice during the night, checking the live feed on my phone. All I could see was falling snow and darkness. Nothing moved. When morning came, the snowman was still there. Closer again. Now it was only a few feet from the window, close enough that I could see details in the snow, the uneven surface where hands had shaped it. I checked the camera footage. The recording showed snowfall for hours. No person, no movement, no interruption. At one point, around 3:12 a.m., the camera image distorted slightly, just a brief flicker like static. When the feed stabilized, the snowman was there, already built. I scrubbed through the footage again and again. There was no moment where it appeared, no transition. One frame, empty yard. Next frame, snowman. The timestamp hadn't changed. I didn't go to work that day. I stayed inside, blinds closed, checking the window only when I had to. Around noon, I heard a soft knock at the front door. It was the same officer from the day before. He asked if anything new had happened. I showed him the footage. He didn't say much. He just watched, rewound, watched again. Then he asked if I'd be willing to stay somewhere else for a few nights. I packed a bag and went to stay with a friend across town. It snowed every night that week. When I came back home 5 days later, the yard was empty. No snowman. I felt relief for the first time in days. I cleaned up, returned to my routine, and tried to forget about it. Then another storm hit. When I woke up the next morning, the snowman was there again, right outside my bedroom window, closer than ever. So close that I could see where the stones had been pressed into the snow with deliberate force. But something was different. The compressed snow at the base was larger now, wider, as if whoever or whatever had been standing there had stayed longer than before. I didn't knock it over this time. I stood at the window, staring back at it. For the first time since this started, I noticed something I hadn't before. The snowman wasn't just facing my window. It was aligned perfectly with my bed. That same morning, I moved out. I sold the house a month later during the spring thaw. I never told the buyer about the snowman. I didn't think they'd believe me. Before I left for the last time, I checked the backyard one final time. The snow was gone, but the ground where the snowman had stood, where it had stood for hours every night, never fully recovered. Even now, years later, I still wake up sometimes after a snowfall, instinctively looking for something outside my window. And every winter, when I see a snowman in someone's yard facing a house instead of the street, I feel that same quiet fear all over again. because I know how long someone can stand in the cold without leaving footprints.